Live from MMA Fighting Studios, this is Between the Links. And now, your host, Mike Heck.
Wow, you know it is a big day. You know it is a big week when we get the iconic voice of Esterlin live, introing a very special Tuesday edition of BTL. Happy Tuesday to us all, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. We are ready because there's a lot going on this week. We got, of course, on Saturday, UFC 309 at the Mecca, Madison Square Garden. Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic, a fight we've been talking about for what seems like a decade. Michael Chandler, Charles Oliveira, 5-rounder in the co-main event. And then the night before, we got Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. You can feel however you feel about that. That's okay, because before that, we get Amanda Serrano versus Katie Taylor too, and that is a tremendous bout. And today, on this special Tuesday edition, mega Q&A edition, your questions all show long, and joining me to answer your questions, Mr. No Gray Area, the Hot Take Kid, the Baron of Boop, and the president of the Mike Bobo fan club. He is Jed Meshew, joining us from the ATL. How we doing, buddy?
Doing so good. We are finally here, Mike, in today's Tuesday? In 8 days, we can just be done with Jon Jones. It'll be so great. Because I'm giving a buffer. There will be some talk afterwards. But I figure by mid next week, it'll be on to Nickal, and we can be done with this nonsense saga that's taken up all of our lives for the past 18 months or however the hell long it's been.
I think it's been actually a little bit longer than that, but it seems way longer than that. And of course, joining us from the Dallas-Fort Worth area near Arlington, Texas, the site of Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, EKC Lyden on the ones and twos, the baddest stash in all of MMA. Look at the shirt. Look at the shirt. A little Mike Tyson's punch-out tribute. That's fantastic.
I show up in Dallas, and they just throw all this free merch at me. I love it. Get with it, UFC. Get with it. Is Jose getting a cool Jones Stipe retro shirt? Nope. Boxing is where it's at. Influencer boxing, baby.
Yes, when you have an event on Netflix, the merch comes out and it's pretty damn cool. I can't lie. That is a pretty damn cool shirt. We got a good show, and you will control all of the narratives of said show. So put your questions in the chat. We'll pull them up. Of course, the super chatters get the VIP treatment. They get the jump to the front of the line. But let's go. Let's talk Jones Miocic. Let's talk 309. Let's talk Paul Tyson. Let's talk all sorts.
Wouldn't it be funny if nobody asked any questions about UFC 309? It was just like nobody cares, and we're just not talking about Jon Jones at all. I think it would be hilarious.
Just nothing but UFC Vegas 100 questions. I love it.
Yes. Let's dive in deep on Henny the Hitter as the future middleweight champion and the current middleweight champion.
Oh, yeah. The lifelong middleweight champion.
Oh, how was UFC Apex 100? I didn't get a chance to watch any of it.
It banged.
That's good.
There was 11 fights, 8 first-round finishes or something very stupid. So the pacing was terrible, but as a rewatch event, unbelievable.
Oh,
I'm
as
sure,
a rewatch.
you can
okay,
go
cool.
it was pacing that happens when every fight ends in the first round. You've got a gap. You've got 15, 20 minutes wait before the next one comes out. So that was whatever. But fun finishes. The RDR fight was hilarious. Main event was cool. It was the platonic ideal of an Apex event.
Love it. All right, some questions.
Kenny, which outcome do you want more, and which one is more likely? 1, Tyson KOs Paul. 2, Stipe KOs Jones. Jed, I think I know where you're going with this, but have at it.
Very obviously, the one you should want more is for Stipe to knock out Jon Jones. It will be, I've said this many times in the lead up, and I will believe it until it is no longer a possibility, the funniest thing that this sport has ever had happen in it. And maybe the funniest thing in the history of sports in general. I don't know. The butt fumble, incredibly funny. Watching Mac Jones get thrown through the ground on the last play of his functional Patriots tenure. Mike, I'm sure you know exactly the play I'm talking about. Super funny. There are other funny things that happen in sports, but nothing would be as funny. Imagine the UFC whatever Sean Strickland winning the belt was, 280 something. I don't know. The post show we had for that, where all we did was laugh for 90 minutes about Sean Strickland beating Israel Adesanya's ass. It would pale in comparison to how freaking amusing it would be. Because I saw Luke Thomas tweeted, I think it was Luke, so I apologize if I'm wrong and I'm putting words in his mouth. Maybe it was Caposa. Whoever it was tweeted something yesterday. As Jon has just really upped his media this week in like the worst ways possible. It was like the premise of it was hard to imagine like a year ago telling me a fighter would go up and win a second belt and it hurt their legacy. But Jon Jones is really, really trying to make that happen with just the horrible way he's carried himself. And the coup de grace, the pièce de résistance of this all would be if Jon does all this and then gets knocked out. Because today, I don't know if you guys even saw this because I just saw the clip earlier today. I don't know who he was talking to, but Jon is doing a media thing and he says, I think, paraphrasing, fighting Stipe is a good matchup for me right now because there's a lot of uncertainty with my career. I'm coming off this injury, and so I think it's good to fight Stipe now. That is saying the quiet part out loud. It is specifically saying, I'm glad I'm fighting this old-ass dude who can't beat me because I'm coming off this serious injury. I'm getting a little older, probably not as good as I once was. This is a good time for me to get a free roll. And so, like, for all of that to happen and for him to get knocked out would be the funniest thing in this world. I could die happy if it were to happen. And so the Paul Tyson it's not in the same ballpark of outcome, in part because I could not care less if Tyson knocks out Jake Paul. I don't care for Jake Paul. I don't hate him, but it's not my cup of tea. Mike Tyson is unabashedly a bad human being. And because it happened a while ago, we all have just sort of allowed it to be fine now. But like, this is not like convicted rapist. Like, it's just, that's out there and never once apologized for it, to my knowledge. So like, fuck him. I don't give a shit if he wins this fight this weekend. So absolutely, as far as likelihood, neither's happening. It is probably more likely that Tyson knocks out Jake Paul just because he can still hit kind of hard for 60 seconds or whatever, but neither's happening. So it's whatever.
Casey, someone asked this prior to UFC Vegas 100 on the People's Pre-Fight Show. What fight do you think ends up being more competitive? Paul Tyson or Stipe versus Jon?
Man, both these fights are just so stupid. Just so, and like I had to bust out my iPhone calculator because I was trying to figure out who has the higher combined age in the main event, and I think Paul Tyson beats it by like 4 years if you add both ages up of each competitor. But what's the question? More competitive fight?
Yep.
I'm gonna go Jones. Stipe. He's gonna be more competitive because I think I just can't imagine Tyson and Paul being a good fight. It's either gonna be I just feel it's gonna be one-way traffic real fast in that fight. But I think like as the fight gets closer, I'm going, man. And when I'm hearing more about Jones, like when the fight was first announced like 5-6 years ago, Jones Stipe. I felt Jones is going to just walk through Stipe, but the way more Jones is talking, how kind of like, I don't want, basically ducking Tom Aspinall, I'm kind of going, okay, Jones is just, we already knew he's past his prime, but way past his prime. And I feel Stipe has a little in him still to make it competitive, much more competitive than the Gane fight. But so, yeah. That's a long answer, yeah. The cage fight will be slightly more competitive.
No? Jen?
Oh, going on.
Tyson Paul, because and this could be entirely naive of me, I believe that Jake Paul is aware enough to understand what this is. And I believe that because for his many faults, and there are many, He mostly does understand brand management, and when he has aired on that, there's been reasons or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I have to imagine that the people around him and himself are aware that he does not really gain anything by knocking out a 60-year-old man, and that going out there and just laying him out is a bad look. And I think he would, like, in a fair, true to account fist fight at this stages of their life. Jake Paul has some ability to hit people hard, and he's fighting a damn near senior citizen. He would hit him hard, and Mike Tyson will fold up. Even the dude, like the promo shit they're putting out, the whatever they did the training montage last week, or the footage were like, ooh, Mike Tyson dropped a training partner in sparring. He looked awful. He looked amazing for a 58-year-old dude, but he looked every bit of 58 in his training. Like, yes, he is in unbelievable shape for being 60. He's fucking 60, man. Like, it is just what it is. And I have to believe that Jake Paul understands enough to know I can't kill this guy for many reasons. And so I think that will turn into a glorified sparring session. The concern is that Mike Tyson doesn't have that level of awareness in him, and then just tries to fight, and Jake Paul has to actually fight back in defense. Even if that happens, Mike Tyson is not going to fight for more than 6 minutes on Friday. Like, he's an old man. He's an old fucking man. Like, if you were watching this at home, imagine fist fighting your dad or grandfather. How long do they have in them to fist fight you? They don't. It's just, this is what it is. I am concerned that this should not be sanctioned, but I got to think that it will be competitive because it will just become a sparring session.
Do you think Jake is talented enough to carry Mike a bit? Like
This
Mayweather
iteration
Conor?
of Mike, yes. By carry, it would be jabbing and moving around a lot. It won't be like, because when Mayweather carried Conor, there was just a lot of other, there was a lot of defense, and it will just be, I'm going to stay away from him. We'll do a little more clinching than usual, work the body maybe a little more. And so I think in general, yes, but I guess we're going to find out.
Yeah, the last time we saw a former world champion boxer who is in terrific shape fight a guy without a ton of boxing experience was Vitor Belfort fighting Evander Holyfield. And Vitor Belfort has never recovered from that knockout. He went out there and just blitzed him and hit him with everything he had. And the whole build to that fight, because I remember asking Vitor Belfort about Jake Paul fighting Tyron Woodley, because I think that first fight happened not long before that. And he was like, how dare you compare me to Jake Paul or Tyron Woodley? I would never go anywhere near Jake Paul. That's a joke. It's a farce. It's ridiculous. He goes out there and obliterates Evander Holyfield. He celebrates like he just won the friggin' World Cup. And then what does he do? He calls out Jake Paul on the microphone in front of Donald Trump and everybody else. Like, he has never recovered from that. I don't even think he's fought since, because it's just...
Yeah, he boxed Jacare.
Oh yeah,
last year, earlier this year.
That's right. I don't remember that. I don't remember that. That's everything right there.
So we are clear, Mike Tyson is the exact same age Holyfield was in the Vitor Belfort fight. The exact, that's it. And I think you're spot on, Mike. I just think Jake Paul is smart enough to know I gain nothing by knocking out Mike Tyson, and it is very possible that I immediately off-putting to huge swaths of people, because this will be massively viewed. This is not influencer boxing Jake Paul. This is not him doing the shit he's done the last few years. If he goes and on Netflix in front of 100 million people, however many are going to watch this, it will be massively viewed. One of, if not the biggest viewed combat sports things of this century. And he just kills the old man. He has to understand that that is not good for him or for anyone. And so I think it has to be competitive, because he just can't do it. He can't be that dumb.
So later today is the open workouts. So this will. So I remember the open workouts for Holyfield Vitor, and when Holyfield came out for the open workouts, everyone was all like, was that? Am I remembering that correctly?
Oh no, he looked real bad on the mid.
Okay, I was trying to make sure I remember it correctly.
That was one of the most memorable days of my combat sports career, because I interviewed Evander Holyfield before the open workout, and I was horrified just talking to the man. He couldn't put a sentence together. And I was like, what is happening here? Like, why are we doing this? And he took this fight on like a week's notice. They moved the whole friggin' card from California to Florida because Florida was the only state that would sanction Evander Holyfield to fight anybody. And then he went and did the open workout, and it was just like, oh boy. And then the question was, is he just trolling? Is this gamesmanship in Evander Holyfield? And boy, it wasn't. It was real tough to watch. And then he just got annihilated in there, and I was 50 feet away from it. And it was sad, man. The whole thing was sad.
Well, that's why I guess let's see if Mike actually hits the pads hard and doesn't just, shadow box for 15 seconds and, gets out of there. But from all accounts I've heard, as far as just like maybe just Mike's persona's intensity, I'm just taking this from Esther because she's been around it longer. She said, Mike, actually, Esther, I'm kind of jumping topics real quick, but she said, no, she's photographed Conor, she's photographed Jon, she's photographed all these big name fighters. She said the aura that Mike Tyson had when he walked into a room was like just next level. And he had an intensity to him. Like he wasn't kind of like, he's already has this kind of fight week, like, I'm no more Mr. Nice Guy, no more like happy Mike Tyson. So I don't know. I'm gonna try to stay.
That's my concern. My concern is that Mike does not understand what this is, and that Mike gets into fight or flight mode and starts fighting, and Jake Paul will be forced to fight him back.
Yeah,
and that will go horrifically poorly for Mike Tyson at this stage of his life. I can't be more clear. I am not saying that Jake Paul is a better boxer than Mike Tyson. He has never nor will ever be a better boxer than Mike Tyson at Mike Tyson's prime. I am saying that 27-year-old Jake Paul will knock out 58-year-old Mike Tyson if they get into a real fight.
Yeah. Jed, have you ever like grappled like high-level grapplers, but they're old, like 50 plus?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's gonna be a lot of that. Like in the same way, I'm assuming boxing is gonna be the same. Like the first like 90 seconds, it's dangerous. But no matter what, age is just age, and the cardio, they just can't keep the cardio up. So like when I go against like bigger dudes, bigger, stronger guys who are in their 50s, the first like 90 seconds, like oh my god. But then reality kicks in. They gas bad, no matter how in shape they are, and then you just do what you want to do. So yeah, I'm interested to see. Interest is the wrong word, but be positive. Interested to see if Mike can get past that 90 seconds.
It's the old adage of I'm as good once as I ever was, but I'm not as good as I once was. Like for a minute, veteran savvy and like the ability. And if I were to sit here and get punched by Mike Tyson, it would not go very well for me. Like power's the last thing to go. His power is clearly diminished from Mike Tyson. He can still hit pretty hard. And if he lands, sure, that could be an issue, but he's got 6 bullets in the gun? Like Mike's got maybe 6 strong punches in him. Like if this were a real thing, and then he will just be an old, tired man in there. And I am genuinely concerned about this fight, and I've tried to be positive because the likelihood that something goes really negative is relatively small. But like, I genuinely think, and I wrote about this week in our roundtable about this event. I think that the fans tuning into this do not understand this shit at all, and I hope that they never have to learn this shit. But the adage of you don't play boxing is so fucking real because you don't play this. This is every time you hear fighters say shit like, I'm willing to die in there. That's because that is true. And in boxing, it is especially true. Like on average, about 13 people a year die in the ring. Like, this is not a fucking game. And we are really tempting the gods with this one. 95, 99% that nothing bad happens. Everyone gets paid. Great. I sincerely hope that is the outcome. I truly do not think, because people have lived in this bubble and they are, or they're casual fans, they're Jake Paul fans, they do not understand the dire, severe consequences that are at stake in this sport and in a matchup like this. And so I have been genuinely concerned since this was first announced. I was immediately like, yeah, we should super never do this when Mike had the medical episode that bumped this back. And I am still just kind of just clutching my pearls, I guess, and hoping for this to go fine on Friday.
Right. I hope this is very much like Tyson Roy Jones Jr., where it's like they're
It'd be
trying
terrific.
a little bit. That'd be awesome. And that was like a fun watch. I enjoyed myself watching that fight. But
that is the upside. That's the hope, is that this is Tyson Jones Jr.
All right. Well, we'll have plenty of time to talk about this fight on our preview show later this week, but we'll get to other questions because I still have a lot to talk about this fight, and we have so many questions. Thank you. Let me get super chats right now.
Last stand. Thoughts on the Stipe custom? I assume this is custom shorts. Jed, please, just please. I'm very excited to hear you verbalize this into a live microphone.
I thought they were divine. Not because they're good, but because they're the most on-brand shorts. Like, one, I say this a lot. I don't know if y'all agree with me. I don't want to put those words in your mouth. I certainly have espoused this, and others have as well, that the UFC is not a particularly creative company. That largely the people they hire in creative spaces have limited ideas, or more likely the sort of overarching impetus for creative ideas is neutered by this sort of drive to have a monochromatic vision for everything. There's not a lot of room for expression of personality. These are the most bland personal fight shorts of all time. The fact that Chandler also got like the same garbage ass fight shorts, they're the same thing, only instead of doing the checkerboard, it's like the American stripes and the stars and stripes or whatever. It's just, these are, okay, the first time you did custom shorts, it was like, those are pretty gnarly. And then you've had a couple of cool ones, a couple of ones there's like, I'm not entirely sure why we're doing this. Like, I get it, but maybe it's a little stretch to do Dustin Poirier with a floral pattern. Like, I know that he wears those shirts, but like something with the fleur-de-lis would make a little more sense. And then now we're on iteration 8, 9. It's just like, okay, I think Jon Jones's aren't good. Like, they're very there's nothing unique germane to him in a way that really sings out. But then the Stipe ones being like, dude, just give him like the Crow Cop. Just give him the checkerboard from Crow Cop if you're going to do this shit. Not whatever the hell these things are. They are bland and lifeless. Like, I don't get it. I don't know why him and Chandler just have all black shorts basically. With like, it is so bland and so lifeless. It is so indicative of my broader creative issues with the company. But I do think it's incredibly on point for Stipe Miocic, who has never been somebody who's particularly interesting. So why not have bland, lifeless shorts for him?
It is wild, those shorts, because right when I got here, like Esther, like this is one of about 10 different custom shirts they have for this fight. There's 10 other ones, and they all look freaking awesome, by the way. I just wore this one because everyone knows the punch out, but like it's just crazy that the creative bankruptcy that UFC has.
The part that always drives me insane is because like we've done this on the poster game for years at this point. Like the posters, the UFC 300 poster, 300 was literally like an MS Paint preset, doc, where they just threw the flag option, went gold, threw 300 on it. Like truly anyone could have made that. The part of this that kills me when it's stuff like this is like, and the Charles Oliveira's, I don't really get, maybe I missed something about them. They are at least identifiably unique, but it's still, I don't think there's a lot there. The part that kills me is ostensibly they have a team of people that work on this, that get paid money to do so. And there are dozens of fans who do better shit online for minimal clout. Like, who do their own fight posters that are just better. Who, if you just like, hey, go to Jay Romero or whatever, I'm like, hey man, like, take a crack at designing some custom shorts, see how they go. Like, there's so many creative people around the space. And like I said, I do not know the team at the UFC. And so if you are listening to this and I am throwing you under the bus, I am very sorry. What you are allowed to show the world has just never been all that interesting. And I don't know if that's a you issue or if that's a company mandate, but it was just like, it feels like such a low lift to do better than what we're getting here.
Yeah, and then compared to John shorts, which are like, they put all the effort into the John shorts.
Yeah, I still think they're terrible, though.
I still don't get it, though. I mean, effort went into it for sure. But
literally, the Stipe and the Chandler shorts are the same short. You've just swapped the Croatian spit for the Stars and Stripes. Like, they are the same black and gray short with, like, it is. Like, those, to even call those custom is a real, like, that's a real stretch.
It just has their names on them.
Yeah.
That's the custom.
But all, like, the fight shorts have their names on them.
Yeah, it's just like
all fight shorts
in different fonts.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't get it, man. I feel like we could do better.
Reebok peaked with the Giblert shirt, but after that it went downhill.
One of my great regrets in the sport is I didn't buy one of those.
The Giblert.
I should have just bought it when you could have, just to have it.
Wait, look at. So they have hoodies. MVP hoodies. Look at the back of these. They're like super nice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's crazy, man. Like, they had like 20 versions of like different. Oops. And just simple things. This also
speaks, Casey, to something that is related to this, but very different to me. I think the idea of custom fight shorts is fun insofar as it's very stupid because all fighters should be able to design their own fight shorts. But if you're going to take away, that right from fighters, having some level of this is a cool perk to being great, successful, etc. It also, like, I am never going to buy fight shorts from the UFC store. I don't know who does. I know you can, like, buy them. To what purpose? Like, what are you, like, that just doesn't. Whereas I would buy shirts. I have many shirts, but I'm never going to buy a boring ass random UFC fight kit. Yeah. So like, the jerseys are garbage. So why not also do custom shirts for the fighters that are interesting and specific, or event shirts like that? Like, if all genuinely feels like there is a merchandising business aspect to this that they just don't care about. It's like, nah. Cause like, how many fight kits have you seen in real life? Like, in the wild?
Oh, it's
less than 5 for me. It's very, very rare.
If you take out Connor, take out Ronda, take out John, maybe I've seen like 2 ever.
Yeah, it's just, they're not there. So like, it just feels like you're losing a big merchandising area where you could have cool design stuff on t-shirts like Casey's wearing. Be like, all right, here's a merch booth. I'll buy some of that shit and that'll be dope. And I can wear it around. My friends know I went to UFC 306 or whatever.
Thank you. Thank you, Last Stand. All right. Super chat from Alex Aldridge.
Say Stipe ices John, then post-fight Stipe retires and denies John the rematch. What does John do next? Cry? Retiring on a loss would cause his giant ego to collapse in on itself like a dying star. So this is an interesting question because I saw clips of this. You mentioned Luke Thomas, him being asked this on Submission Radio. Jed, what happens if John does lose his fight? Like, we would laugh and have a great time with it. But when we look at where John goes, what his legacy looks like, what this means for Jon Jones, the fighter, what does it mean? Where does he go if he loses?
Come on, man. He'll have lost and he will be quiet for a minute and then he'll tweet something. He'll get real wide receiver ass tweets going. If you guys know that internet meme of a wide receiver tweet, John will get extremely wide receiver tweety. It'll start with a couple of like, y'all don't know my story. The enemy moves silently and just some shit like that. And then it'll be like, we'll get the Dare to be Great. Like, absolutely going to get the Dare to be Great. I came in off of longest layoff of my biggest injury of my career, 18 months out, whatever the layoff is, 2 years, fighting against the greatest of all time. And robbery. It was a bad stoppage, whatever they like. There will be it will be a wonderful stew of denial, anger, and just coping going on in there. And it will be just delicious. The thing that I am interested in is if he loses, I don't know what happens. Because under normal circumstances, I would say the only way that Jon's ego could ever rest, that he could ever be at peace such that that man is capable of finding peace, which I'm not sure he is, but such that he's able to, I would guess that the only way is if he could, okay, now I will fight Tom Aspinall because I need to get something back from what I lost. The issue being, if Stipe knocks your ass out, which is I think is the only real way Stipe wins is to knock out Jon. But if Stipe beats you, you can't feel great about your odds against old Tommy A. So I just don't know. I don't think he has the humility to say, I got and I'm too old for this shit. I can't do this anymore. And so I need to just accept that I now have a loss I can't bury my head in the sand and pretend isn't one. But I just don't know if he can do that. And so maybe that it might be where Jon becomes BJ Penn and Tony Ferguson and all these dudes where he's like, I gotta get this back. I cannot end in this way. And then suddenly the undefeated Jon Jones is staring down the end of his career where he's taking multiple losses because he don't have it anymore. Like anything could be possible. I desperately hope we get to find out.
God, can you imagine if Jon loses and then he just kind of goes quietly into that good night and then 3 months later he starts barking at Aspinall and then Aspinall just like denies him? It would just be the best. It would really be the best. But
it'd be pretty damn sick.
I don't think it's going to happen, but it would be. It's a fun thing to think about.
I think he wouldn't bark at Aspinall in so much that he would just bark at Stipe to get him out of retirement, to get it back with Stipe.
Yeah.
I think that's where he'd have to start. And maybe. In my head, that would be incredibly stupid, but people do dumb things, particularly when there's a lot of money to be made.
Yep, and that's it. A lot of money to be made.
All right. Thank you.
I want it to happen so bad. MMA gods, I ask you for so very little. I will stand here on air and say this. MMA gods, I will never ask you for anything again. Ever. Just this once. That's all I need. It'd be so fun. God, it would be so fun.
Oh, man.
I don't even want to put my thoughts out there because I have to see it. Just because I have just too many thoughts. You know what? But I want to get to this comment real quick because we might be losing some fans watching.
The cynicism and negativity in this episode of BTL is just off for me. I can only take so much of these guys whining. Who the fuck is whining?
That's
Seriously,
okay, man.
No one's whining.
It's also it's fine, Charlie. Like, I get it. This is like, we have been objectively negative, and if that's not your bag, I get it. Like, there are plenty of other, because people say stuff like this all the time, and I want to be really clear. I do not hold a grudge if I am not for you. If this stuff is not to your taste, I get it, man. There's a lot of stuff out there that's not to mine. I have never once gone to been watching a show and been like, oh, I don't care for this. I would like to let them know that I don't care for this, and then I'll continue watching. I just turn it off and go do something else that I like. Like, I absolutely agree that you should do the things you like. And if this is not for you, sorry, miss you. Check us back later on when there's a happier topic of discussion. Maybe this will be for you. And that's totally reasonable. Like, I do not begrudge you doing things that interest you. I think it's a little weird that you're very vocal about it when you could just turn it off. There's other people who are doing preview shows. YouTube has almost infinite number of videos you could watch about any other thing. Go do that, man, and be well. Like, I wish you nothing but the best.
Yeah, UFC Embedded's probably dropping in a little bit. That'll be real positive for you. Yeah. You're good.
But like, I'm not going to change who I am. I am who I am, and I am not going to sit here and pretend that this shit smells like roses, because it doesn't. Like, it is not. There are people out there who will give you that content, and I encourage you to go check them out.
Yeah. Check out UFC.com. They have lots of great content up there. And there's a 4-part docuseries on this fight on Netflix. So, yeah.
Have you guys watched any of that?
I watched.
I can't decide if I just want to see it to at least I don't want to see it for me, but maybe I want to be aware of it because obviously the importance to our space, etc. Mm-hmm. So, give me your thoughts.
I watched the first 2, mostly just to see if there's anything for content for the website. I learned absolutely nothing from either of the episodes. So that's one thing. I didn't learn anything.
But it's also not for you, right?
Exactly. Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
The line, like the coolest part of it all, and it's one that like everybody's talked about, and I was lucky to see it before everybody started tweeting about it, was when they showed Mike Tyson watching Jake knock out Mike Perry, and then he called Pump Mike out, and Mike was like, he's a manufactured killer, I'm a natural born killer, whatever it was. Like,
it's a good line.
That was pretty cold. That was pretty freaking cold. That was cool. Very, very cool. And then kind of like Tyson going back to Brooklyn and stuff was kind of cool, or wherever that area was. Yeah. There's a person walks up to Mike and like takes a selfie with him. He goes, "Yeah, man, you robbed me like 25 years ago or whatever," when Tyson was like running the streets. And the guy's like, "Yeah, I love you, Mike. You robbed me when I was like 12 or something," which is pretty funny.
Yeah, I like actually
that's a ridiculous interaction.
Yeah, dude. There's a few.
But I could see that. Like, can you imagine getting? Oh, I got jumped in high school by like the guy who turned out to be like the greatest whatever ever. You get through it. Like, now it's a story you have now.
It is definitely a story.
Yeah.
The day you realize that happened just has to be fun. Wait, I think that dude fucking robbed me.
Wait, the youngest heavyweight champion in the history of boxing? He robbed me.
Dude, that dude's on ESPN. The fuck?
I should be on a Tapology page. Actually, I only saw the first episode, and I did enjoy it because I'm not like a big Tyson guy, for reasons that Jed said. But take that away and just learning about the history of him and him going back to Brooklyn. And I love that scene where I think he's in the car, and everyone's like, Mike, 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 and then he talks about his wife saying, what was it? If no one recognized you, Mike, walking outside one day, it would kill you. And he's like, yeah, you're probably right. And these are just, I've never seen prize fighters talk about fame is interesting to me, because that's the part I just don't really, we see him in the ring for like 15 minutes, press conferences, but that kind of life, wherever they go to Chili's, everyone's like still bothering them, It's just interesting. So I did enjoy it, and it did get me more interested in the fight. Did not get me more interested in the actual competition, but the story of the fight. So I liked it. All right.
Check it out. Go on. The 3rd episode just dropped today, I think. So
is there any part of the other fights? Because I will say that has been an interesting facet to this for me this week and for the past month. I understand that there's clearly a headliner here that is drawing the attention. And for whatever knocks I may have against Jake Paul, one thing that I do give him a ton of props for is consistently promoting women's boxing, specifically Amanda Serrano, and just like always folding that into his stuff. And like, I think all that's great. Because the top is so big, I have seen next to no discussion about Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano 2, which was the fight of the year or 2-3 years ago, however many years ago that was, which is obviously like the best fight of the weekend, full stop, across all combat sports. And so does that get any play in the show, or is the show entirely Tyson and Paul?
Very, very little. Very little.
I'm not surprised. I just didn't know.
Yeah, very little. But maybe the third episode is more of it. I don't know. But the first two is very little. It was them at the press conference, and Jake talks about it and says like he thinks Amanda won the fight and all that. But yeah,
I almost think that they shouldn't have put it as the co-main for this, because I understand the idea. I think it is overshadowed too much. Whereas with other events, it can be like previously when Amanda Serrano's fought, she has been able to grab some spotlight as well, because the marquee event is not so big. This one is so massive to the casual observer. It is sucking up all the air in the room that there is not enough space for this fight to breathe, in my opinion. And I understand the concept. I just think as it's played out, maybe even they would agree, maybe we should have not overlapped these two things.
I do feel that way now, but I'm going to reserve judgment to see how the end of the fight week goes, the press conference, open workouts, and things like that. But right now, I do lean toward what you're thinking. Like, as much as I love that fight initially when they said it, now as it's coming along, I'm like, I keep having to remind myself, that is on this card. That is actually the best fight of the weekend.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yep.
And you're totally right, Casey. Like, give it the fight week. Maybe that changes. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is what they're doing is old school, like Coker just got to Bellator type booking, where they put the fight with the well-known commodities on there. They have them do all the heavy lifting in terms of promotion, but then you're still getting like these up-and-coming superstars you need to pay attention to. So while you're waiting for that, you get to watch these two world-class boxers beat the hell out of each other. And at least you can come away with it being like, I didn't even know who she was, or I didn't know who Katie Taylor was, but I do now. So maybe that's what they're hoping for.
And there's a world where this lands perfectly, and there is certainly a reasonable piece of this being like, if nothing else, Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano 2 on Netflix, the most viewed combat sport event of the year. Like, that makes sense. I have just felt increasingly as we've gotten closer that fight has become such an afterthought, to the extent that it is thought of at all, because the gravity of Paul and Tyson is so enormous.
All right. Thank you much.
Herbert, what is Ciryl Gane's career arc going forward? P.S. E.K.C. Leiden, the GOAT for real. Yes, he is. If you haven't seen Timeline, that is the reason why. Absolutely knocked it out of the park again. 2 hours, almost a 2-hour timeline. Go check it out. You can listen to it as well on the Pod Network. Well, we know where Ciryl Gane's career arc is right now, because he's about to fight Alexander Volkov at UFC 310 in December. So we can kind of gauge that on December 11th after that fight.
Yeah. It's hard to tell.
Long term, I genuinely have no idea. I think the hope is that he wins the belt if you're him. He beats Volkov again, and then he gets to fight Tom Aspinall. I do think he is a legitimately interesting test for Tom Aspinall, insofar as Aspinall doesn't usually shoot takedowns, and he is very hittable, and Ciryl Gane could hit him should they engage in a primary striking contest. But he's just going to be a dude. I don't think he'll win, even if that is the outcome we get there. And so he'll just be a guy who gets to hang around and be a good, meaningful heavyweight.
All right.
How old is Ciryl Gane?
That's a good question.
He's 34.
Yeah, I was going to say low to mid-30s.
Yeah, still got several years at heavyweight. Yeah, he'll just hang around, be relevant. Maybe, he's already an interim champion. Maybe he gets, maybe he could beat Tom Aspinall. Well, I will see, because he won't ever fight John again. So, but he'll still be one of the 5 best heavyweights for the foreseeable future.
All right. Thank you much.
Chase, if he loses, they run it back ASAP. Dana will book the rematch before Bruce announces the winner. It'll be too much money for Stipe to say no. Also, Tom will be screwed, which is hilarious. I don't know why that's hilarious.
He said this. Chase said this some other show we did in the post show, maybe.
What did he ever do to you?
Yeah, not my definition of hilarious, but again, we all have our own senses of humor.
That's true.
And if you just are deeply anti-Tom Aspinall, look, I get it. I am deeply that there are fighters out there that I hate. And so if Tom's one of those guys for you for whatever reason, okay. I think you'll be not alone, but there won't be many people on that island with you. But I think there's a 50-50 chance that what you were saying here is true.
Maybe it means it's hilarious because the UFC botched this whole thing by even booking an interim title fight. And it's just all been a disaster ever since. But
all right, let's keep the topic on Tommy.
Tommy Aspinall.
Is that man that you're singing about, Jed, the biggest loser on Saturday if Stipe wins and they do a rematch?
Yeah.
If they book a rematch, then for sure.
Who else could it be? Me. Except for no, because then Stipe's won, so I'm the winner. Yeah. I actually no. I think Jon is the biggest loser. Because if Stipe wins, Jon lost, and I truly cannot express to you that in 10 years, 5 years maybe even, it won't even take that long, people will come back to Jon Jones is the greatest light heavyweight of all time, one of the greatest fighters of all time. That part of his career is etched in stone and is irrevocable at this point in time, truly. But he has botched this so badly the last 2 years where Floyd Mayweather is the comparison for Jon Jones right now. Floyd Mayweather, for people who know nothing, Floyd Mayweather is the greatest boxer of all time. He's 50-0. If you simply have only a cursory understanding of boxing and you were born after 1980, you think that Floyd Mayweather must be the greatest boxer of all time. If you know boxing, if you are deeply ingrained in boxing, and I am not telling you that I am the greatest boxing knower of all time, but I follow the sport deeply enough and I know people who do, pretty much everybody who knows ball when it comes to boxing is like, Floyd could have been, but Floyd spent the back half of his career dicking around, and he's not the best boxer of his generation. Manny Pacquiao, who he beat, is a better historical boxer of his generation than him because of his willingness to challenge himself in ways that Floyd wasn't, because of his unbelievable record, et cetera, et cetera. That is what Jon has done the last 2 years. Is if he had just retired after the Dominic Reyes fight, and undeniable where he was at. And even with the Dominic Reyes, he kind of lost there. We saw what happened with GSP. GSP probably lost to Johnny Hendricks, but he left and then came back, beat Michael Bisping, and bailed. And everyone is universally on the page of cool, good work. You're the greatest fighter who's ever done it. Golf clap for you. But because Jon did that, but then came back and was real shitty about things. And, it's just kind of, if he had just bailed after the Gane fight, but because he keeps tweeting, because he's chronically online, because he has blatantly ducked Tom Aspinall to the extent he has, all of this is going to hurt his image, broadly speaking. It won't kill it. Hall of Famer will be in the conversation, but it's going to hurt him historically as we look at the totality of his career and say, man, I'm not sure he's the GOAT, divisional GOAT. Yeah. I don't know, man.
Love it. So
keep rolling.
Let's keep rolling. Let's do it.
Yeah. Plus, I also do genuinely feel like Jon, you won't be able to handle it if he loses. So if he loses, he has got to be the big loser.
I'm not taking my mind there yet. I'm just not doing it. I can't. All right. I think we know the answer to this one, but here we go.
Steve, do you think the UFC will strip Jon Jones if he refuses to fight Tom?
Sort of. No, but yes.
I
don't think they will frame it as stripping him.
Yeah.
I think they will frame it as
Vacating.
John's retired.
Yeah.
Yeah, John's retired. John's not fighting anymore.
This is when Terry Francona lost the last game of the season when the Red Sox played the Orioles. Red Sox needed to win the game to make the playoffs. They lost after they spent a shit ton of money and got Carl Crawford and Adrian Gonzalez and a whole bunch of other people. And we knew that was Terry Francona's final game as the manager of the Boston Red Sox. We just knew it. We're like, this dude's got to go. This team and Terry don't mesh. He needs to get out of there. And the Red Sox did not publicly state that he was fired. Terry Francona, quote unquote, resigned. And that's basically what this would end up being. Now, Jon continues to say interesting things. He's planting seeds and changing his path slightly with each interview he does. He's gone from, no, we got to do Alex Pereira, champ versus champ, to, well, it doesn't need to be a belt on the line. And now it is, let's do a BMF belt and I'll vacate the heavyweight title. So I still think if Jon wants to pull off the heelest of heel moves, it is he needs to, if he beats Stipe, you get on the mic, you call Tom in like you're going to do a face-off, and then you just hand him the belt and say, there you go. You want to be the champ? Now you're the champ. And then Jon shoos him away, says, go sit down, son, and then calls out Pereira for a BMF title fight. Like, that would be friggin' awesome. Like, I would have so much respect for that if he did that. It would be the heelest of heely moves. Tom would just be like, wouldn't even really know what to do, but he'd be the champion. So it's still a win for him. I don't know. I think that would be a great move on his part.
I would know what to do if I was Tom. I'd just be like, I beat Jon Jones without ever having to fight him. That's it. I didn't even have to fight him, and I beat him because that man did. Like, it's a bad idea to be chronically online. And I say this as a person who is chronically online, both personally and professionally, because I kind of have to be. Like, it is just really bad for you to be chronically online. And Jon is so that way. Every part of this would look better for him if he could shut the fuck up. If he could just not tweet and talk and say things and continue to dig this deeper and deeper and deeper. Where it's like, a week ago, he gives the interview where he's like, I'm not going to fight Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall hasn't done anything to deserve it. And we're like, that's very silly. And then the next day, he's like, Tom Aspinall could never do anything to deserve to fight me. I would like to fight Alex Pereira. And then now it's not even, I'll defend the heavyweight belt against Pereira. It's, I will abandon this title to go fight him for a made-up belt. Not even, I'll go back to light heavyweight to fight him for the belt that I owned for 10 years and that he currently holds. Like, it is, he is making it worse every iteration of this. And it's Tuesday. We got 4 more days. We got media day tomorrow where I'm sure he's going to make it even worse by saying something else that's very, very silly. The only way that any of this I am not speaking out the broad populace. People don't know. They don't consume this to the extent we do. Most fans will just say Jon Jones is undefeated, greatest fighter of all time, because that's what Dana says. For the people who know, for the people who are watching this show, the hardcore fan base, they will all be like, yeah, Jon Jones is one of the greatest fighters of all time. And he transparently ducked Tom Aspinall in the most egregious way possible, unless Jon fights him. It's the only way to get back what he himself has just thrown out the past 12 months. Like, if he had simply, again, go back to GSP, the end of GSP's career is equally as bad as Jon's. Like, that whole thing is equally as bad because it's the same. He lost to Johnny Hendricks. He took a bunch of time off. He came back at the exact right moment to fight a dude he knew he was going to beat and get a second belt, despite the for the entirety of his career, people were like, we want to see GSP go fight Anderson Silva. We want to see him do this. And he's like, nope, I'm just going to stay at welterweight. I'm good. And then as soon as Bisping gets the belt, GSP's like, free win. I will take the free win in the second title. I will come back. Let's do this. He does. Dana says he's definitely going to defend the belt. We all knew he wasn't. Everybody was clear that what was happening here. And GSP made it all work because he shut the fuck up. He said, Michael Bisping is a great fighter. I'm very excited to fight him. I'm going to go fight him. And then, medical issues. I'm out. And he just hadn't spoken about this shit since. And everyone tolerates it. It was like, what a hero. What a king. What a great, great guy. Because Jon can't shut the fuck up and do the bad thing. That's what this is. This is a bad thing. And we would all tolerate it if he could just not be so Jon Jones about it all. But because he is, this is the room we're in now, man. It has been a tough month, and I'm ready for it to be over.
Dude, Jed is on one today. I'm loving you. I'm loving you, Jed. Dude, really, thank you for bringing the GSP comparisons, because I mean, we were all.
It's 1-to-1.
I lived in that moment too, but I knew it was so similar and so different, but yet so similar. It's really wild. It is really wild.
It is nearly identical, and I have said the same thing about Jon that I said for GSP. I do not blame him for this. This is a good business move, 100%. Yeah, I do not blame him for this part of it. What I blame him for is the lying about it and the acting as if I'm an asshole for seeing clearly what is happening. That is the part. Like, you can do all of this by saying little and just doing it, and everyone will just kind of be like, all right, not the best thing that's ever happened, but cool. But when you are being so imperious about all of it, it is so off-putting in a way that makes it's so off-putting. It's the difference between how they carried him is really indicative of the fighters themselves, because very clearly at the beginning of Jon's career, he was trying to be GSP, not maybe as a fighter or whatever, but he wanted the GSP mold of, I am going to be the professional fist fighter. I'm going to be the professional UFC fighter. I'm going to carry myself in the way that GSP does. I will be clean cut, stand up guy.
He moved to Albuquerque to be with his coach.
Moved to Albuquerque. I will be the guy who gets the Nike sponsorship. I will be the guy who helps elevate this sport from skinhead cage fighting, human cockfighting, to professional athlete. And to some extent, he had success with this. I'm not here to diminish that part of his legacy, but very clearly, all of that was a put on, which I go watch the timeline. It is so clear to see if you watch the timeline that Casey put together of like, here's Christian Jon Jones being a great guy and flippy and 310 and just glory to God, and it's slowly like, that's not who Jon is. George is that guy. It is maybe a bit of a put on, right? He's putting on airs to some extent, but at a baseline, George is just kind of a good dude who likes to rock around with dinosaurs and aliens, you know? Jon ain't that, and because he is not, the way he has carried this later stage of their career, despite it being eerily similar, is so different, and it starkly shows the difference in the two of them as people, and certainly my ability to tolerate it.
You know what's funny is I thought about like the GSP comparison and like everything you said about how GSP handled all this. It was always the promotion. It was always Dana and the UFC brass who said, yeah, he's going to fight Robert Whittaker. Don't worry about it. But GSP never really said that. Never really said that. He would always be like, he'd play the Belichick role. Yeah, man, I'm focused on Bisping. We'll see what happens after that. If Jon just did that the whole time, and anytime he was asked about Tom Aspinall, I'll be like, look, man, guy sees his opportunity, went out there and knocked out Sergey Pavlovich. Guy deserves to be an interim champion. Maybe someday we will, but right now I'm focused on Madison Square Garden. I'm focused on Stipe Miocic. And if Jon got on the mic and called out Alex Pereira, people would be like, yeah, man, I get it. He's earned the right. Like they would absolutely say that in the fallout of this without question.
It is so clearly to like it's so more evident than anything. Like George St. Pierre worked with professionals. Like that was his whole thing. It's like, I want to be a professional fighter. I do not want to be I am a professional. I'm going to seek out the best trainers, the best people to surround myself. Very clearly, George St. Pierre worked with a PR professional in his career about messaging and how to do this in the same way that literally every other major sport in the world does. There are swaths of PR people who have media training on how to handle situations, tough to easy. And George is exactly to your point, Mike. I'm focused on this. I have a legitimate test, a great fighter in front of me. I must beat him. And Jon could say the exact same shit. Stipe is the greatest heavyweight of all time. I'm a light heavyweight. I am still just vacationing up here. I have got to find a way to beat him. And after that, I will focus on this. And then to your point right there, Mike, if he does all this shit after, no one cares because you get swept up in the idea of, holy shit, Jon Jones versus Alex Pereira, mind blown, bro, as opposed to doing it weeks in advance where you can be like, dude, what are we talking about? Like, you doing something in the wake of knocking out Stipe in an awesome performance in an arena full of people, there is momentum. Like that is real, and that momentum can take you places. You doing it on the internet weeks in advance when no one gives a shit and they're ready to pick you apart is bad messaging. It is bad media training. And that has been the story of him this whole time. It's like, he should not have access to Twitter. There should be a person who manages his Twitter, and like as other professional athletes the world over do. And instead, Jon gets in his feels late at night and just starts going, and it always looks bad. He never comes out looking good.
For the while, the UFC did hire a crisis management PR person that walked around with Jon for a couple of years.
Dude, I have said this long. When you get those questions and stuff like this of like, if you could be president of the UFC for one day, what would you change? It's like, I would change fighter pay, but obviously I can't make that. If there's like one thing that I could enact in the UFC that's a pretty low lift, it would just be like, I would mandate that every fighter goes through a legitimate media training because it is not hard. And truly every other professional brand in the world does this. Like every sports brand does. It was like, hey, Sean Strickland, I understand, like, you're free to speak your mind, but maybe let's figure out how to say the things you want to say in a way that's better and not incredibly off-putting to huge swaths of people. Like there's just a, yes, you, and to the, because I know that there are people like, it's real. The NFL did blah, blah, like we're not the NFL. The UFC wishes it was the fucking NFL. The UFC is an incredibly successful business. It doesn't hold a fucking candle to what the NFL brings in revenue. And the reason the NFL does that shit is because that is how professional people conduct themselves the world over. And it would just be so easy to solve all of these things. And they just let it happen because they make a bunch of money and they don't care.
Just a reminder, a good 75% of the roster still has day jobs. I would say maybe 25% of the actual roster actually makes their full-time living off fight checks. Yeah. And
last thing on this, when we go to the next question, because Lazy Bed pointed this out, and I mentioned it earlier, but I've ranted a lot, so I want to circle back to this as an important point. Everything I said I will stand by till I die, unless Jon gets on the mic and calls out Tom Aspinall and fights him. If he does that, then this has been the most, and I will eat my crow. I will get a big spoon and eat the whole humble pie. And I will do nothing but give Jon Jones props for building this in an untraditional and deeply annoying way. If he fights Tom Aspinall after all of this, credit to him. Everything I said was wrong. Dunk on me forever. You all, I give you free reign to do so because he will deserve it if he comes out, and this has all been a long con to build the fight with Tom Aspinall.
Agreed.
It'd
be unbelievable.
It would be an elite level of trolling and fight building, and I would have nothing to say, but I was wrong. The people who said this were right.
Well played.
Absolute credit. Well played. Full deserve. Credit to you, Jon Jones. I got nothing to say. That I will eat my crow if that is the case.
I remember Dana.
I will not say I dared to be great. I will not say that I dared to be great.
I remember back in the day, Dana would do a good job of this by taking away fights and then people wanting that fight. 'Cause I remember for a long time people wanted John Fitch versus Josh Koscheck, but they were teammates, so they wouldn't fight. And then that's when Dana did the whole I don't know, I can't remember, by just putting it out there that that fight won't happen, and he wants it to happen, the fans wanted it. I don't know, it was this kind of, by taking it away, we want it more type of thing, So it's interesting. God, John.
It will be incredible fight promotion if he does fight Tom Aspinall. Full stop. No caveats at all. If this has all been a long plan to build interest and generate interest in this fight and then take it, I fundamentally do not believe that's the case. I will tip my hat to him if it is.
That would actually make this whole fight week worth it if he does to Stipe what we think he's going to do, and then he grabs that mic and just, Tom Aspinall, get in this cage right now. Woo.
Be sick.
Hey, it can be done. Look at what Joaquin Buckley's done this year. Turned a full 180.
We got a couple more super chats, and we're going to actually talk about things not the main event.
Ooh, terrific.
All right, thank you. Mehdi, just rewatched the Don Davis interview with you. Don't you think PFL would be better off with a president that's a fight fan than just another corporate figure?
Dude, this was my favorite thing. I feel like we've talked about it on air, but I don't know if we have or not. The DMs that I was involved in, the Slack messaging, when that came out, was the absolute best. I've given Don Davis his credit, and I will. It's not an easy thing to do and come into that sort of scrutiny, and credit to him. Absolutely baffled that he just came out and was like, I don't really care about fights. The moment it happened, I was like, did anybody else hear this? Did it it was one of those where it was so wild. I was like, I don't know if people are recognizing what this is, but this is the thing that is going to be taken away from this if people see it. And immediately it was. I was like, okay, it's wild.
Yep, it sure was. And I even tried to get him back in. Just name him.
Tried to save him.
And he did. Yeah, it didn't happen. I was like, oh man, I couldn't help him. There's not another. I didn't have another lifesaver to throw to.
Yeah,
that was it. That's all I could do.
It was so funny, man.
So I was curating the question. So I'll give him a tough one. It's like, all right, here's a fun one. Let's get back to fun. And so I thought, I think we just asked about, the fighter that's in a coma or something. So the next question, let's keep it fun. What's your favorite fight? And then it got worse.
When that was asked, I was like, oh, that's good. And then I was like, in my head, is he's either going to say something dumb, like Kayla versus Pacheco or something very silly, or he'll if he's cagey, he'll be like Fedor Krokop, old school pride shit. He would never go UFC related, but then he'll just be like, yeah, if you're talking about watching fights to relax, I don't do that. Okay.
Michael Chandler versus Eddie Alvarez won. That's in your brand. That's Bellator. There you go.
Any number of things were available there. And it's also just it's such a generic softball that you should just have, working in the sport, you should have that answer for no other reason than it has come up in discussions at some point. I don't know, it might take a minute to think about it, but I'll just reflexively say one or whatever. It was.
Yeah, it's just man, there's just so many great fights. It's like asking me what my favorite pizza is. I love them all. I don't know. He said the worst thing.
Here's my biggest takeaway from that whole experience and where we are now. Don Davis learned a lot from sitting there for over an hour, because literally a day later, Dana White went to the dais after Power Slap in friggin' Abu Dhabi and lit him a new asshole and just annihilated him. He viciously destroyed him, mostly the company, and their heavyweight super fight champion, which is no surprise. This thing is going to go on forever. What did Don Davis do after that?
He didn't tweet out a graphic of any kind. There were no charts. So
he did nothing.
It was smart.
He did nothing. He sat back, let Dana have his thing, understands the cycle of the sport that, yeah, it's going to be a tough couple days for you, buddy. But then it's just going to go away because the news cycle switches so quickly. And I think they're just learning, like, they need to be the best PFL they can be and not the co-leader to the UFC. That's what they need to do moving forward. The fact that they're doing the World Championship card on ESPN Plus for subscribers is a smart move. It's absolutely what they need to do. And next year, they just need to do fun shit with this season. Like them saying, I like the idea of the call-out round for the second round of the regular season. Fighters with the most points can come out and then call whoever fighter they want, or they could do a wheel, or they could do a blind draw or something. Like, I like that. Let's do fun things. And seems like they're listening, at least in attempting to do fun things. The Champion Series idea, I'm intrigued by it. I'm intrigued. Hearing Don say, yeah, Bellator's not working. The brand is not working. No one cares. We're still going to do Champion Series events, but it just may not be under the Bellator umbrella. Interesting. It's less confusing. So he's learning, and we also have to remember
Bellator is fulfilling a contractual obligation,
yeah.
And as soon as they are out from that albatross, then they get to be done with it. We get it.
Nobody cares. So we'll see. We'll see if this continues on. We'll see what Thanksgiving week's going to look like when they have the World Championship event. Don, I'm sure, is going to do interviews, and I'm sure there's no doubt about it. He's going to be asked about everything Dana said about him. I'm very curious to see how he responds to it. I hope he just leaves it at, look, man, they're doing their thing. We're doing ours. I can't focus on them anymore. If he does that, man, that is a friggin' grand slam.
That moment in the town hall crystallized something I've been thinking about for a while with regard to him, as I do not understand why he is public. I genuinely don't understand why he is the public face of PFL, because to Mehdi's question, the PFL actually does have a president that's a fight fan, and Ray Sefo. Don is not the president. He is the co-founder and whatever his other titles are of it. Ray Sefo is the president, I believe, of the PFL. And he is the guy who is at events and does the post-fight press scrums and, talked to him a bunch when I've done PFL stuff. Former fighter, like a guy who clearly should be in that role. And to me, it's just like Don is Lorenzo Fertitta, if we're making this an analogy. How often was Lorenzo Fertitta out there speaking with MMA people about the sport? Never. He would very occasionally be doing... He was the business end of things, which is what Don is. He's a businessman, and Lorenzo would do that stuff, and Don can do that stuff. And Don going on whatever, MSNBC or like the various other parties that are focused on the economic model, and sort of his role obviously is to raise funding for this thing as a business entity. And so doing that totally makes sense. Him coming to our level of things and discussing something that he is pretty limited, just frankly, like pretty limited on, because he is not a fan of this world. He is not a fan of the sport. I do not understand why he is the one who does it other than Ray Sefo, because pretty clearly that should be Ray should be Dana and Don should be Lorenzo.
Yep. Hey,
but again, credit to him. He didn't have to come and do the town hall, and he did. Like, I got respect for the man being willing to put himself in this, but it is just I do not know why, when there is a guy better suited for that role already under the employ of the company.
It's tough because Ray doesn't say the things he says either. So Ray's just very business-like with his responses. Just, hey, this is what we did. This is what it meant. And Don is a much better public speaker and says
that is the only argument to me for it, is that Don does have more charisma and better at that piece of it. Yeah. But that is pretty limited when, like, you have the limitations of not being in the world. Because, like, if just take this back to the other way, if Dana was when Lorenzo Fertitta and the Fertitta brothers bought Zuffa bought UFC, if you swap these roles because Lorenzo was like a better speaker than Dana, it just kind of doesn't get over in the same way. Being the public face of the company, you have to love fighting. And for any issues you have with Dana, and I got plenty, that man loved fighting. I'm not sure that he still does, but he loved this shit for 20 years. And that you felt that when you were interacting with him. And honestly, legitimately, one of the major issues I've had with Dana over the last 10-ish years, maybe a little less, is that he's checked out. He kind of checked out when Zuffa sold because he made $1 billion and there, but like he just sort of has checked out. And that's why, he's focused on slap fighting, whatever the power slap and stuff like that. He doesn't have the same passion, and we can feel that. And so when you're public face for the PFL for a brand that is not nearly as strong as the UFC, does not have that passion, we can feel that. You got to get somebody who's going to be your public face and going to advocate strongly for you in a way that will connect with your potential viewership.
Yep. And it ain't Fight Matrix rankings, and it just isn't. So, okay.
All right.
We're rooting for you.
We are.
Oh,
all right. Here we go.
Connor, does a loss for Bo Nickal dead his hype, or does he have leeway since he's still young in MMA? Would they slow roll him even more? So he's a minus 1,000 favorite right now, which could grow against Paul Craig. But what if something weird happens? Paul Craig's pretty hurricane kind of a guy, man.
Yeah.
He does weird things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just ask Magomed Ankalaev what life was like fighting Paul Craig. It goes well until it doesn't. Ask Jamal Hill what it's like to fight Paul Craig. Wasn't a very good time for the former light heavyweight champion. So you never know.
Paul Craig has wins over like 2 of the 5 best light heavyweights on earth. It's so funny to me.
Yeah, and now he's down at 185. Both fighting.
That is weird. That is weird.
It's so weird.
It's so right.
When Jamal Hill was the champion and Ankalaev was like the guy who should have been champion, but for the draw, it was just like, and Paul Craig beat both these dudes.
It's wild. But what if he beats Bo Nickal, Jed? What happens? Does the UFC just go back to the drawing board, or is his hype gone, or does it become? Oh, let's see how he bounces back. Because Raul Rosas Jr. lost, and it wasn't good, and bounced right back. And obviously, they're 2 different guys altogether, because Raul was still a teenager, and Bo Nickal is more seasoned and almost 30. What if he loses?
It'll be okay. Everybody can lose a couple times,
I think so.
particularly when you're young, and there's thing like he'll take a knock. It will be a step back. There will be less people being like, give him a top 15 opponent, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, might be better for his development because he still, like the Cody Brundage fight was a good developmental fight. Showed that, hey, he actually still has things he needs to work on. He needs to really focus on, as opposed to just like fine-tuning details. Broad swaths of the sport he doesn't have yet. That makes sense. He's been doing the sport for like 3 years. So I think a loss will not be catastrophic. It would certainly be a setback. The loss would be far more meaningful. A win for Paul Craig would be far more meaningful than a loss for Bo Nickal, in that you take him back. Okay. I would say that a loss might get us to where we need to be with Bo Nickal, which is Bo Nickal needs to be fighting more. You don't get better at fighting by not fighting. And Bo Nickal has been taking a lot of time. And so he needs to be, but like Bo Nickal's 2025 should be a minimum of 3 fights. Should not be, okay, we're going to be very careful. But like, they don't have to be against good people. Just put him in there to fight dudes. And at the end of the year, unless he blows us away against Paul Craig and looks amazing, his first ranked opponent should be the 3rd fight of 2025. And then if he does 4, then he can start moving up at that. But he just needs reps, and he needs to be in front of people more than he has been this past 18 months.
You nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
I feel like the Bo Nickal hype is kind of already dead just because of the inactivity. I mean, it's still there, but it's just okay.
Dude, hype in this sport, I've come to believe this more and more year over year. and I just think I'm dead right. Being a star in MMA, hype in this sport is almost entirely, with very few exceptions, in a result of activity, of simply being in front of people repeatedly in a condensed span of time. Khamzat Chimaev became functionally an overnight sensation because he fought 3 times in 6 weeks and he put on great performances. And then he has never been as hot as he was after that because he's fought once, maybe twice a year. And he still has aura, and et cetera. But it is that Alex Pereira is having this moment because he's fought 5 times in the past 12 months. Bo Nickal, his hype was at his peak when he signed on Contender Series and he fought 3 times in 2022. Donald Cerrone is, I guess, going to be a UFC Hall of Famer. Is he? He's already a UFC Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he is.
Donald Cerrone never won a major belt and was one of the most popular fighters in the sport because he fought 4 to 5 times a year. When there's so much of this sport happening and there are 500, 600 UFC fights a year, if you are one of those fights, you are lost. You are in a sea of other human beings, and even if you are impressive and exciting, you don't stand out in a way that is significant. But if you fight 4 or 5 times and every time out you're dealing, people notice, people stand up. That is how you become popular. And I understand wanting to slow roll a career. Slow rolling a career to get the best out of a prospect should not be fighting once every 8 months. Should be fighting shitty people every 2 months. Like, that's how they have done it in boxing for centuries. Take that same missive here. You got to get Bo Nickal in front of people.
Dude,
Kevin Holland
is
man.
yeah, exactly. Kevin Holland is probably I feel pretty confident saying that Kevin Holland probably makes more money than most UFC title challengers right now. Like, want to know why? Because he fought 5 times in 2020. And then he lost his next 2 fights. He got 2 main events right out the gate in 2021 and lost both of them in the same way. Got taken down, laid on his back, and got dominated. And the dude he doesn't need to fight for belts. People just like him. He's out in front. He's charismatic. He's fun to watch. He's a good fighter. He's great on the mic. And he's a star. He'll never win a belt, and nobody cares. No one cares.
Who are the 3 biggest fighters this year?
Pratis. Like, breakout-wise.
I just mean the 3. Yeah, sure. But it's Pratis, it's Pereira, and it's Topuria. Topuria only fought twice, but they were monumental efforts. And so, yeah. So if you're going to fight twice, but they are going to be historical wins, sure. That's the way to do it. But Pratis just fought 4 times, got 4 performance bonuses, and people have seen him a bunch. We got to get Bo Nickal could do that. He's just got to do it.
Anything else?
Oh, a couple more super chats before we get out of here.
All right, let's rifle through these. Jonah, your reaction to the announcement of the Iron Faction, Mike in Turtle Park, Jun Young continuing the legacy of the Iron Sheik. Loved the show.
I have no idea what this is.
I didn't see this.
I know the Iron Sheik is a professional wrestler, and the word faction is a wrestling term.
Sure is.
And obviously Iron Mike being Mike Tyson. Or I guess...
Oh, maybe.
I guess Michael Chandler.
Oh, did they link up?
I guess Michael Chandler and Mike Tyson are there.
And Jun Young Park, apparently.
And then the Iron Turtle.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah.
I got to tell you.
Anytime you can team up with the Iron Turtle, that's good.
If the Iron Turtle has found a way to ingratiate himself with Michael Chandler and Mike Tyson, good on him. That's good brand management.
Yep. Well done.
All right. And last super chat.
Alejandro, Jed Meshew has stated Stipe does not have a win over anyone employed by the UFC. I am here to set the record straight. Everyone knows DC is regularly commentating UFC events.
He's got me. Look, when you're got.
But
DC...
here's the question, though. Is he employed by the UFC or is he employed by ESPN?
Oh, no. I was going to go another way because I'm certain he is employed by the UFC. Actually, in a weird twist of fate, Stipe is the only fighter who has a win over someone employed by the UFC, because actually fighters aren't employed by the UFC; they're independent contractors. So I was all the way wrong with that statement, Alejandro. But I think you do get the point I was attempting to get across.
That's
but
terrific.
you're absolutely right. Couldn't have been more incorrect in how I phrased it, though.
Yes. Well played.
There's not many people have wins over people employed by the UFC, because
Dan Hooker does.
It's DC. It's Bisping. Bisping does booth work, so Bisping's employed by the UFC.
Paul Felder.
Forrest Griffin.
Cruz.
Still works for the UFC, right? Was it Forrest Griffin?
He actually is employed by the UFC, so that's as well. Cruz, yeah. Sanko? Maybe, but I don't know if anyone active has a win over her.
I think she's only 1-0. I think she only had one fight.
Just 1-0? Okay.
Just 1-0, yeah.
And yeah, that's 5. So if you've got a win over any of those 5 people, because I would bet that Usman isn't employed by the UFC. I bet he is an ESPN employee. I think
Morena.
I think the ESPN analysts. Oh yeah, because if you're doing, I forget you're doing the
Grasso,
Moreno
team. So yeah, Grasso, Moreno. All right, it's going to open up a little bit then.
Yeah,
Ponzinibbio is another one.
Does Verdum still do language stuff for them?
I don't think so.
I would assume not, but I don't actually know that. So yeah, but limited number of people are employed by the UFC that have competed. So
love that. What a twist.
But great point. He got me.
Okay,
he got me.
We done?
We done.
Okay. Well, it's gonna be a busy week, everybody. We got open workouts today, right, for Paul Tyson. So you'll get some footage of that on MMA Fighting. We got media day for UFC 309 tomorrow. So you'll see that all live on the feed. Press conference tomorrow for Paul Tyson?
Tomorrow. Yes. 5 o'clock.
That on MMA Fighting.
5 o'clock Central. So whatever.
Tomorrow's going to be a day.
Yeah. Yes. Thursday, no BTL, but we'll be doing our Paul Tyson preview show at the same time that we would do this show. So you can still mark your calendars for 12:30 Eastern time on this channel. We'll talk all things Tyson Paul, and we'll give some respect and some time to Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano because they deserve it. We'll answer your questions about that. We'll have weigh-ins for Paul Tyson as well. So, and then ceremonials, and then there'll be a UFC press conference on Thursday. And then Friday, we got UFC weigh-ins. We'll have a UFC 309 preview show. Then we'll have a People's Pre-Fight show for Paul Tyson, and then Paul Tyson prelims are going to start, and then 8 p.m. Eastern, that's when the main card starts on Netflix, and that is when the first of 2 watch parties will start this week. Jed and I in Command Center 4.0, watch party 8 p.m. Eastern, and then Saturday we kind of do it all over again. People's Pre-Fight show for UFC 309, 5:15 p.m. Eastern, and then another watch party for UFC 309, 9:45 p.m. Eastern. You're going to be seeing a lot of our mugs, and we're going to have a great time. So, Casey, hit the music.
And then a post-show.
And then a post shows for all the things.
I guess we're doing a post-show Friday, too, for Paul Tyson.
Yeah. What we could probably do is just, take 5 and then just
go live.
Go back live again.
Yeah. I honestly think we should do that.
Yeah. We'd probably just do the same thing. But
sounds like a smart move.
Buckle up.
We just stay broadcasting. I'll just sleep in the couch, in the chair at the command center. People can watch it. We'll get Truman Show with it. It'll be fine. Yeah. And then we'll go right into the UFC 309.
We'll Twitch it. Thanks for watching. Good night, everybody.
Love y'all.
This has been a production Between the Links, an MMA fighting production on the Vox Media Network.
Very professional. Very professional.
Hey.